Hi there! So let me start by saying I did film an intro for this video with my face on it and everything. But now that I'm editing, I noticed that the file is corrupted and it has almost no audio. That means now I'm here on voiceover to tell you about today's project. I am turning this little guy into Nerdy Crafter. You know how I love a LuckyCat transformation, and I thought I'd do Nerdy Crafter because she announced not long ago she has this gorgeous new very empty studio, which I figured needs some art. Here are my sketches, and maybe the video description saying I'm turning the cat into Jackie is not the right description, because what I'm doing is I'm making him a representation of Nerdy Crafter, or of things that remind me of Jackie. Anyhow, I started by covering the cat with a layer of spray primer. And now I'm bringing in my foam clay to change it a little bit to have it fit my vision. If you saw from my little sketch, I want the cat to wear Nerdy Crafter's signature beanie, which I thought maybe she had designed herself, but my daughter has taught me that this is Bulbasaur from Pokemon. I was introduced to Nerdy Crafter by my kids years ago, so they know more about her because they've been fans for way longer than me. I'm so grateful they introduced me to her. I love her content, love her energy. Watching her videos makes me really happy. I tried putting the beanie to the side first so I could show one of the cat's ears, but I wasn't liking that at all. So I took the clay off and oops, I had also forgotten to add some white glue underneath. Added that, and then I decided I'm gonna have my beanie cover the cat's ears completely, and then I was going to add some new ears to it so that it looks like they're coming out from the hat. And at this point it just looks like an old lady in a shower cap. Not great. It was kind of hard to cover the ears, and I also wanted it to somehow look more like a beanie than a shower cap, like soft fabric as opposed to hard plastic. So I tried to make it look like the weight of it was folding it back. You know, when you wear a beanie, you feel the top is folding back. So after fiddling a lot with it, I think it's looking less shower cap and more hat. And I'm trusting the painting will make that more apparent. I really wanted to sculpt the edge with the gap to show it's a piece of fabric on top. I don't know how people model foam clay so smoothly. I haven't figured out that just yet. So I did try to get rid of the lines made by the clay folding on itself as much as I could by really wetting my fingers and getting the clay almost like slimy. It's the most I've been able to smooth out using this technique of getting the surface slimy from water and then rubbing it. Like I said, I needed to give the cat new ears, so I carved the space for those and modeled much smaller ears from clay. I actually really like this change of size for the new ears. It really took me forever to get this beanie to an acceptable state, but because of editing magic, it is done. I shared previews of this process on my Insta, and looking at it again, I'm not surprised why no one guessed what I was up to. If you want real-time sneak peeks of what I'm working on, join me on Instagram. That's where I share my day-to-day activities, and you can get a sense of how I organize myself to create content. Back to the cat. I wanted to use the space where the lucky coin is to add something else related to Nerdy Crafter. So I'm getting more clay and I'm starting to build it on top because I am creating her character, the Salty Shaker. I don't remember if that's the name, but it's a salt shaker and it's salty, so... I also wanted to include Angel, her bird, somewhere, but I couldn't figure out where to put it, so I just added the shaker. Mine has a little bit of a wonky shape because I'm using the shape of the coin and trying to cover that, but I think it still looks okay. We also know that Nerdy Crafter's thing are dragons, so I wanted to have my cat wearing some dragon wings. I mean, wearing them almost like kids wear fairy wings. It's not a cat with dragon wings, not a dragon cat, but a cat who likes to accessorize. Because I have no clue how to model dragons or their wings, I printed out an image of dragon wings from the internet to use as a template. So I cut those out, got some more foam clay, and I flattened it on top of the wings to cut the shape out. A pleasant surprise was that when I removed the paper from the clay, the ink from the print left a little pattern on it, which was great help for me to follow and to create the details of the wings. So I made some clay coils and slowly constructed all of the bone structure on top, which I then modeled with my tools to make it look a little bit more organic. I was very happy to have both wings ready, at least one side. I wanted to see if the prints would help me to do the other side by transferring again, so I wet the clay a bit and put them on top. Big mistake. I don't know if it was the wetting or leaving them together for too long, but this time when I peeled off the clay, a lot of paper got stuck to it. I was able to scrape it and just kind of make it work, but it was super time consuming and it did take away from the smoothness of the clay. I tested the size of the wings on the cat and I liked them, but I decided I'm gonna let them dry on their own and attach everything when it's dry. That always makes things easier to paint. Because I know Jackie likes the steampunk aesthetic, I wanted to include a little detail that symbolized that on the cat. I didn't want to make the whole cat steampunk theme because I don't know that much about it. It doesn't say nerdy crafter to me. But I saw this image on Pinterest and I thought it would be fun to imagine that the little wings he has are kind of steampunk. So they have a little engine that powers them, allowing them to flap. Again, he's not steampunk. He likes to accessorize, he likes to dress up, he likes cosplay. So I started to model the backpack and I wanted it to have a part that looked like it had liquid fuel in it. And I thought that these candy charms that I actually had left over from the Mariah Elizabeth inspired cat could be used to mimic that effect and also to be used as metallic parts for this little thing. I also cut out the back of a pencil to have the little metal part in there, and I cut this huge clip to act like the hoses. I really struggled cutting that huge paper clip and getting it to bend the way I wanted it to, but I definitely think it was worth the effort of putting this thing together. I was actually so proud of myself for creating this little backpack and the way I used candy and stuff that I already had. I never thought I could create something like this. Of course, I did use the reference image, but still I was proud of how I made it work with the things I had in the studio. Okay, so now I had all of my bits and pieces ready to dry, and those two little extra candies that I decided I would also glue on top after everything was painted. A few days later, and here's my cat. Everything is dry and ready to paint, and look at this. I'm actually gonna use the paint I had left over from Nerdy Crafter's pouring kit. It's unbelievable how much great quality paint I got in that kit. I truly loved it too. It was so much fun. I would totally buy it again. I think this may be the last project I get to use the paint for, but I still got so much out of it. Okay, I chose blue for the whole cat because Nerdy Crafter has this beautiful dragon she designed. She has it in a plushie, she had it in a handbag, and it's blue. So I thought I would draw inspiration from that. And really, this was another moment in the project where I had to trust my idea and my process because that looked like a Smurf. It looked so much like a Smurf. Really, I was panicking a bit. I shared that on my Instagram too because I thought it was so funny and still no one guessed what I was doing. I forgot that I wanted to sand the foam clay a bit before painting it to try to make it smoother. So I sped the drying of that first layer of paint with my heat gun and made it a tad smoother with the sanding tool that again came in her kit. Added a second layer of paint, and for the third layer I actually tweaked the color a bit. So I went back and here is how the cat is looking. Time to paint the beanie and the salt shaker. Those two were faster to paint because the white foam clay takes the acrylic paint easily, so just one layer. I think I maybe should have been more careful with the blue so I didn't have to correct so many little mistakes, but oh well. Okay, so I had all of my base colors, they were down and ready, and it was time to do all of the tiny corrections where I messed up with my smaller brush. For the wings, I use yellow to match the dragon's horns. It looks good on video, but for some reason, I did not like that first yellow, and now I'm wondering why. But right then, I had to change the color. I used the gold paint for the backpack, which for some reason kind of reactivated with the paint, and the surface became super sticky. This has never happened to me before with painting dry foam clay, so I really had no clue. But after that first layer dried, it was okay. Then I went back to the wings and thought maybe I could adjust the yellow by mixing a little bit of the gold in, but that did not work at all. Actually, it was much worse. But just to keep them cohesive, I went ahead and paint over them. I did both sides before I left them to the side to dry. As everything dried, I continued to work on my cat. This part I'm painting black because on top of it I'm going to glue that little lifesaver candy that I'm also going to paint gold. I wanted it to look like a piece of scrap metal to nod to the steampunk details on the back. I am using my golden acrylics bronze for the cat's bow because I wanted more of a bronze gold than the yellow gold, so it would look more like rusted and not bling bling. Back to the wings to try to get a color I liked. And I went in again with the yellow, and again I hated it. Then I got my cadmium yellow, and immediately know this color I'm going to like more. It was the shade I was aiming for at the beginning, but of course now I have painted this with so many colors that it doesn't look right either. So I mixed my two yellows to give it an extra layer and finally get a color I liked. I don't know if I was being crazy picky with the yellow, but I gave these wings so many layers I lost count. Finally, everything was painted. My nails are ruined beyond salvation, which kind of makes me happy sometimes to see a ruined manicure with paint. I don't know why. But it was time to go into the details. This part made me nervous because I don't want to ruin everything I've done so far. But because I've done a few cats before, I'm getting a little bit more confident. And this time I also have the brush paint markers that I never had before. And the brush is actually perfect for painting on this because the flexibility of the nib adapts well to the 3D surface. Much easier to paint this way. So happy I could use them for all of the details. I wanted to glue that metal thingy for the bell. I really didn't want to use super glue, so I was happy to be able to get it with my other glue. And now I wanted to work on the shaker. And as soon as I was going to start, I noticed I had the design wrong and I placed the lines of the shaker incorrectly. But I couldn't fix that anymore, so I kind of figured out where I needed to draw the face. It's not great, but in spite of that, I still think you can easily recognize her character. So I'm happy with that. Again, super thankful now I have these markers to work on the details because they really made it easier to work on the 3D surface. I had also forgotten that the shaker has like a gray part in the middle, so I just painted that on top. It was easy peasy, and I tried to do a little bit of highlights too. Now to draw the face for the Bulbasaur beanie. This part made me super nervous because it's also like a super recognizable character, and my beanie was already different because of the holes for the ears. It's always nerve-wracking to go and paint something black on a color surface. Definitely easier with the markers than with an actual brush though. Maybe I'll do more cats now that I have these markers. When I was done with the beanie's face, I thought I would go back to the cat's eyes because although I loved his cute expression, they were getting a little bit lost on the blue face. So again, I thought I would mimic the eyes from Jackie's dragon, which have a little bit of green on them. So repainted the eyes, and obviously that changed his expression completely. The Bulbasaur's eyes needed a second layer of white from my Posca because the brush markers were not really covering the background, but it was easier to use this thick nib after I made all of the details and corners with the brush one. Last step, I had to glue the wings and then the backpack. Sadly, I had to use my super glue because they wouldn't stay on. But I was so careful not to glue my fingers together this time, and it worked. Here's my most recent LuckyCat transformation, and I decided to have the two LuckyCats that I have displayed on my shelves welcoming him. Here he is, looking kind of derpy but so cute. Actually, let me interrupt that. I kind of changed the eyes. Here's how he's looking now, but let's go back to that footage. Look at his wings with his little steampunk backpack, and I love his arm calling in the good fortune is still able to move. I'm actually going to ship this to Canada to Jackie. Let's see if she gets it. I'll keep you posted if she receives it. I would love for her to have it in her new amazing studio, bringing her luck, abundance, and success. Since apparently a blue maneki neko, aka LuckyCat, is supposed to bring in more success. I hope it does. Thank you so much for watching this far. If you did, I'm so grateful to have you here. I hope you're having the most wonderful day and that I'll see you next time. Bye!